talk about students, international students, and the
Mhm.
people who like start making money, anyone like who has assets, those people needs estate planning. How about married family or
Married families
kids?
definitely need estate planning just to make things easier for your spouse. This is especially important in several cases. One, any case where you have children, whether or not you're married, if you have a child that's a minor child, you need to make sure that you're able to take care of that minor child with those assets. And one of the things that estate planning can do, if you've created that living trust, is to be able to set up a trust for that child. So what that does is it will have a person that's making good financial decisions for that child until they reach the age of minority at 18, at
Mhm.
which point they'll gain access, depending on what your wishes are, they'll gain some amount of access to the trust and be able to use some of that money. If you think that your child might be irresponsible with money, there are protections that you can put on that. There's also protections that you can put so they get disbursements over time, so that later in life, when they're in their late 20s, early 30s, about the time that they would be buying a house, you can drop a larger asset at that time for them so that they're able to kind of have financial planning as far as their life goes, which can be a really great gift to give to your child if you are to pass early in their life. One of the other things to think about is if you have minor children, if something unfortunate were to happen to you, and let's say you're a single parent, it happens to you, or if you're a married parent and it happens to you and your spouse, and there's not an obvious person there at that point to take control of the child. So let's say you were on vacation, you had left your kids with a babysitter because you were on vacation and there was a plane crash. And so both you and
Right.
your spouse have passed at the same time. The question becomes, what happens to that minor child of yours? So basically what would happen is the babysitter would get contact that, the death had occurred, and one of two things happens. Either the babysitter calls the police because they're not sure who your next of kin is, at which point Child Protective Services becomes involved and your child might be placed in foster care, or babysitter is going to contact whoever the next of kin is that's local to the area, and then that person is going to have to go through the process of trying to figure out who's actually going to raise your minor children now that they don't have parents.
Yeah. So
um,
your kids will be living with someone that you never met, right? Until the judge appointed the guardian.
Correct. So they will be placed in foster services until the judge is able to appoint a guardian. Now, let's say that you have a bad familial situation. So sometimes people don't have a good relationship with their parents for one reason or another. And what you actually want is you want your sibling, or you want an aunt or an uncle or someone to be the person that would actually take care of your minor child. If what you want is that, you definitely want to create some of the documents that we put together for children that are minor children or adults with incapacity that will be treated as minor children legally in our packaging. And so what that does is it helps you have a document that the judge can look at when they're making those decisions, and a document that will release that initial custody to a trusted family member or a family friend, instead of the child having to go through that process of going to CPS and being placed with a foster family temporarily. So you can.
Parents, you want to make those plans to make sure that your children has enough assets, right? Has like the financial aids to finish the college if anything
Yep.
happened to you. But also you want to make sure that if anything happened to you and your spouse, who's gonna taking care of your children, right? I don't want my children end up living with someone that I don't know. Right. I'm not sure if they're gonna taking care of my kids the way that I would have taken care of them. Right.
Exactly. And it's particularly important, like I said. I know when I was growing up, my mom was unmarried for most of the time when I was growing up. And so something were to happen to her, her wishes were for me to go to my aunt, which is my mom's parents had passed when she was younger. So she definitely wanted me to go to my aunt. If there was some issue and my aunt weren't able to take me, then I would go to my oldest sister, who's 13 years older than me. So in both of those cases, those are trusted family members that are aware of those wishes. They know how my mom wanted me to be raised, and it would be the same thing. And so they would be able to take care of your minor child. Or in the case of an adult with special needs who's treated under a guardianship, that guardianship of that adult child would then pass to whoever it was that you wished.
Does your mom name the guardian at that time?
She did not. So if something really had happened,
If
yeah,
anything
I
happened,
probably would have eventually gotten to the people that she wanted. But however, my sister's only 13 years older than me. It's possible that she wouldn't have been chosen, and I'd have to go through the CPS system in the interim.
right, right.
And so, I mean, as we said, so as far as married couples, so we've kind of walked through this. If you have children, even if you're not married, it's very beneficial for you to be able to set up estate planning so that there is a plan in place for who can physically pick up your child from school, where your child is going to go in that interim instead of to CPS. But also, if you're a married family and you're a blended family, so let's say you have married someone who has a previous marriage, or maybe you are living with a person that is your partner and they have children from a previous marriage as well. If you have one of those blended families, it's particularly important for you to go ahead and do estate planning as far as everything is concerned. It's very important if you're not married and there are assets that you want to pass to that partner that you've had that extended time with. It's also very important if you want guardianship of the children to happen in that step situation, because those are things that the court wouldn't normally go for because you don't have the legal right to do that. But if you create in your estate planning documents those wishes and you can codify them legally, then you're able to really change the course of what's able to happen once you pass.
So pretty much everyone needs an estate planning, right? Including single person or students or anyone who has assets, married families with minor children, or blended families, and also elderly. Everyone in a different stage, you should think about it. How do you want to make those arrangements ahead of time before it is too late?